Welcome to the Cal Park Bros podcast. I'm your host, Terrence, and with me is my co host, Jason, calling in from the Back Cave in Indianapolis. Jason, how are you, my good man?
Hey man, you know what it is? It's game time. It's Tuesday. Despite somebody's busy schedule on Tuesdays, apparently it's now finally game time. Uh, Folks, I was telling Terrence the other day, he's like the busiest man on Tuesdays I've ever met in my life. It's it's good though. It's good though. We always still have time to do this stuff, but man, I'm like, dude, it's Tuesday. It's supposed to be a lame day, but as we always say, for us, no longer is it lame day because it's game day. Yeah, man, I'm doing good. Um, Definitely has some topics to talk about today. So a few mixed emotions when it comes to the three that we're going to talk about, but I'm ready to go, man. What about you?
I'm good. I've had a very productive start to the week, and I'm feeling focused. So, um, definitely ready to take on these topics. A lot of, you know, spirited discussion before we even got to recording this damn thing. So, definitely ready to go. Folks, thank you for listening. This is episode 20 of the Cal Park Bros podcast. For the uninitiated, Cal Park Bros is a weekly podcast for fans of culture, current events, sports, life, and entertainment.
Folks, and as always, we are your hosts, Terrence and Jason, and every single Thursday we release a brand new episode where we discuss the current events of the day, sports, and the athletes we love.
And even some of the athletes we loathe. Folks, no matter the topic, you can expect a brutally honest and fun exchange of snark while learning through the lens of our 30 years of friendship that originated in Calumet Park, Illinois.
Folks, for more Cal Park Bros content, connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter and YouTube under the handle Cal Park Bros or Cal Park Bros Podcast for more behind the scenes of the Cal Park Bros show and to engage with us every single day. But also, the Cal Park Bros Podcast is available to listen and subscribe for free wherever you listen to podcasts.
Like us, love us, share us, follow us. And if you like us, why wouldn't you?
Best line in podcast history. Simple enough.
At least our podcast history. All right, folks, let's get it cracking. The first segment we're going to kick off the show with today is the news that President Biden has effectively ended the war in Afghanistan. I know President Biden just ended earlier today a press conference regarding really how we exited Afghanistan anyway. And to make matters worse, with the 13 soldiers being killed in Kabul last week, it's definitely been a hotly contested discussion. We've been in this conflict for almost 20 years. Actually, no, 20 years plus, I believe. And Jason, one thing I was going to ask you is, I know you've definitely had some. You mentioned mixed emotions. What are some initial emotions that you have as we've exited the United States, that we've exited out of this conflict in Afghanistan?
So, obviously, this is a huge topic for multiple reasons. As anybody who's a fan of the show and has been watching our Between the Cal Park Bros segments that we post on IGTV and YouTube, plug, um, you're well aware that I'll flat out say I did not want to talk about this. Just because, not necessarily because it's a big topic, because we talked about other stuff before, just because I feel like it's a complicated topic. And I told Terrence this yesterday that I was just worried or concerned about with it being military related, not necessarily offending people, but kind of turning people off to the show because of our military, bad opinions supposedly that people might say. But at the same time, but then I started thinking, well, you know what? Again, it's a big topic. We're not afraid to talk about big topics, so I don't want to say I caved and talk about it now, but yeah, we're going for it. One thing I do want to say though is that no matter what I say about this, and I'm sure Terrence's going to say the same, that my political affiliation or lack thereof has nothing to do with my opinions on this. I didn't vote for Biden. I didn't vote for Trump. So whatever I say about this has nothing to do with that or how I feel about either one of them. Simple as that. But you did mention, it's recognized that this war has been going on for 20 years. Back shortly after 9/11, when W. Bush, president, deployed troops over to Afghanistan in the basically, long story short, in the idea of getting back the people that helped plan and aided in, you know, the Pentagon attacks and the World Trade Center bombings, stuff like that. So that's pretty much when it began. Even though we've had connections to Afghanistan, military wise, war wise, before that, this is really the marking of at least the current iteration of this war. And and obviously, and we're going to talk about 9/11 next week. But when you hear 20 years of this, it almost makes you forget that it's been 20 years. I mean, obviously, we know that troops have been over there for a long time, but it kind of makes you think, wow, this has been 20 years we've been there. And that's from our perspective. If you're somebody is in the military and who's been over there and been over there since, day one, essentially,
Day one. Right.
it's been a long time for you, you know. Um, so, and I know Biden has faced some, not, I don't want to put it on Biden, but I know he's faced some criticism with how the exit withdrawal has commenced when it comes to, it being chaotic seemingly and doesn't have much of a plan involved, which may or may not be true. But the fact of the matter is we were getting out of there as was agreed upon by the previous administration, Donald Trump. We're supposed to be out or have the exit plan or start the withdrawal process May 1 of this year, which is 3 months ago. Biden, of course, extended that, said we're going to be fully out of here by the 20th anniversary of September 11th. Obviously, certain things, that were happening over there forced us to move that up to, today. And that's where we're at, man. You mentioned the 13 military officers who lost their lives earlier. We'll go more into that. But I think that's just another reminder, perhaps. And Biden mentioned this in the speech or his address today, which I think he kind of blamed Trump a little bit too much, probably. But
Why do you? I don't mean to interject, Jay, but I want to know. You mentioned, Biden is the fourth president that has effectively overseen a war in Afghanistan. So we've been at this 20 years. We've had four presidents. Um, Biden's going to get some heat, frankly, just because his name's on the fucking door now. But some would say you're kind of foolish politically if you don't at least remind people, hey, I've been at the job less than a year. This other dude was on it for 4. Why do you feel that he blamed the former president, President Trump, too much? I am curious. I didn't watch the press briefing. I would just love to hear your thoughts on it.
yeah, well, so but pretty much what I think we just said. There's been 4 presidents going through this, most of which wasn't Biden. And you really can't blame just one individual. And now, granted, Biden did take responsibility for the chaotic exit that happened. He took responsibility for that. Not that that should make anybody feel better, but does this go on Trump? This goes on Obama and W. Bush. The whole process. Not to say that any one of those other 3 did anything wrong per se. From my perspective, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. What I'm saying is, you can't just put blame on one of them. They all had a hand in this one way or another. All the lives lost over the course of all this 20 years is on all 4 of them, not just Trump. As much as we all hate Trump, want to blame him for everything, can't put it all just on him when it comes to this, especially. So that's what I was referring to there, and a lot of political analysts were roasting Biden for that too. By the way, not that that matters to us, but it happened. But the fact of the matter is, in my strong opinion on this, what I told you yesterday, word for word, verbatim, is that the United States needs to stop playing the role of world police. Now, Biden said this in the speech, and it's from everything I'm reading, including an article I found on USA Today that gives a strong timeline of day one from us being there 20 years ago till today. That the main point of being there, and I'm paraphrasing what he said, but the main point of us going over there originally was to, like I said, get Osama bin Laden, or at the time, the Taliban, Al Qaeda, anybody who had a hand in 9/11, and preventing any future attacks, on the United States, with Afghanistan being the medium for that to happen. That was the goal of us going over there. we got Osama bin Laden in 2011. I don't remember the exact day, but it was May 2011. The country celebrated that. Great. Task one was accomplished. So, at what point do we start achieving goal number two to make sure it doesn't happen again? Did that happen before today when it comes to, you know, making sure the U.S. doesn't get attacked again? Some could say maybe that was achieved. But I have to say, why couldn't that have been achieved before 10 years between Osama being killed and right now? So I know between Obama and Trump, there were plans to get troops out of there before now. But again, that didn't happen. So so maybe now that we're gone from all this from Afghanistan, maybe the Taliban and some stuff I'm reading might indicate that may be the case. They'll take care of Afghanistan, run it how they run it, and leave us alone. Obviously, we can't take anybody's word for that. Biden seems to think their actions may dictate that may be the case. I don't know, but if the war is over, I'd have to say great. Finally, hopefully, one doesn't start back up either from us starting it or them starting it. But I'm glad it's over. But going back to what my original main point is, hopefully this will serve as a lesson to the United States and its military and the people running the military that we just need to stop playing world police and keep the focus on that second goal is make sure attacks on the U.S. don't happen again without trying to build up democracy in another country or again play world police in other countries. You have your embassies in other countries, leave them there, great, do what they do, that's fine. But the whole world policing stuff probably needs to stop. I'm gonna go ahead and cut off right there. Let you say your thoughts, and we can go from there.
Yeah, Jason, I think, well, one, I still don't think we're going to stop being. I don't think the United States of America is going to stop being the world police. We just going to stop it in this particular part of the world. Uh, and it's crazy that we have been such a staple in Afghanistan for 20 years. And yet, in a weird way, it feels like nothing's changed. That's the scary part. That's the scary part for me is that think about all the lives lost after September 11th. Um, and it's not like, you know, this is not the first time we've been tinkering in that side of town on the globe, okay? That's how we ended up in cahoots with Osama bin Laden in the first place. You know, we were funding his efforts previously. So until he went rogue and then turned tails on us. So I I feel like, to your point, Jason, and you had a lot of good points. Let me start there. The point about there's it's not just one person to blame. Like Donald Trump had a shit ton of faults as president, but trying to get the hell up out of Afghanistan was probably the one time he actually sounded like almost presidential, which is saying something. You also said you that the job of whatever the hell the United States of America was trying to do in Afghanistan is so big that you can't even blame one person. Now, that's not reconcilable with how we choose to actually say people are good or bad at being president. That's not going to work politically. That's not what makes the political campaigns. That's not what make midterm elections. But I got what you were saying. Like, Afghanistan is bigger than George W. Bush. It's bigger than President Obama. It's bigger than President Trump. It's bigger than President Biden. And for all of those men's faults and their gifts, it was always going to be bigger than them. I also think that I'm really glad that I don't think that you caved. I think that you simply needed to distill what it was that we actually wanted to talk about when we brought up when we brought up the segment idea of Afghanistan, because that is a legitimate concern, that we strike the right notes, but we're also true to ourselves, and we're true to our community, because I never would have been okay with this being like an anti-military sentiment type of segment. This is really not about the military. This is about individuals who happen to run the military, who happen to run for political office, and how they effectively move pieces like the military, and whether or not the way in which they did that actually helped or hurt not only the United States of America, but also the world, and also Afghanistan. You know, thoughts and prayers to the families of the 13 service members that were killed. But there has been a lot of death and despair for those that actually reside in Afghanistan. Um, does the United States have a role in how broken that place is? Yeah, we do. I mean, that's kind of the whole world police part of the deal. When you decide that, hey, every fight is your fight, or rather, you should have a say in every fight. We're gonna crack a few eggs along the way. We're gonna dash some hopes and dreams. We're gonna kill some people doing that. That is also a part of this thing we like to call American exceptionalism. So yeah, I as we pivot quickly to the 20th anniversary of September 11th, it is very ironic that the less than ceremonious exit of the United States of America, yet another conflict where we're ending a conflict, but the conflict doesn't exactly feel like we won. Like, what the hell did we win? That's that's not really for us to answer today. Maybe people feel different, but I don't really feel like there's a tangible thing that we can hold in our hands and say, "Oh wow, I can grasp onto this." Other than having um, Osama bin Laden's head on a platter, what else did we really get from this 20-year conflict? Other than more death, you know. So I'm glad that we took on this topic. Afghanistan is so damn big because you are talking about military policy, because you are talking about political, you are talking about fiscal policy. I mean, think about how much fucking money has been sent to that region that could have gone to something else in the United States of America for the last 20 years. You probably could have canceled every student loan. You probably could have, invested in infrastructure. You could have invested in education. You could have invested in science and research. But, and it's not to say that, well, the United States can only do one thing at a time. No, we walk and chew gum all the time. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that is awfully fucking expensive for one guy's head. And that's all we're really walking out with.
Uh, so you mentioned the money spent by the U.S. in regards to our occupation, occupying Afghanistan and doing all the work there. The figure I found, according to multiple websites, is a little over $2 trillion. Yes, folks, I said trillion with a T. Not much in my daily interactions, either at work or personally, do I ever even see the word trillion when it comes to any number I've seen. But that's how much money we spent in 20 years. So yeah, it's spread across 20 years. But as to your point, that money could have been spent other ways in the U.S. Now, yes, I get it. Get it. Some of that money, people could say, well, it's some of that money's built help to protect the U.S. So okay, and they're right. But how much less of that money could have been saved by not being there as long? I mean, not being there 20 years. Again, we're not, and again, we're as I said before, we're not military experts here at the Colorado Bros. We're not claiming to be, but I think most citizens in this country, especially today, are going to wonder why were we there for 20 years. Whether even people who are in the military, but definitely some of the military people I talked about, their anger at this is how is it possible that we've been there for 20 years and all of a sudden the Afghan government just folded like that in a matter of moments, almost by comparison. So it kind of makes what us being there for so long almost kind of pointless in a way.
It also makes it seem like, wow, this is really a house of cards, and all that shit was for show. Like the whole, pomp and circumstance about having free elections, all of it. It feels very fake. I didn't say it was fake. I said it feels fake. It doesn't feel real. It feels like it's a fantasy being propped up by propaganda. And the United States is still pretty good at that angle too, by the way.
But I guess if we're looking at a view of moving forward beyond just not creating the same mistake again, which obviously, like you're saying, they're gonna play world police. Um, I mean, if it's in an effort to protect the U.S. from attacks, okay, great. But when does the line stop? And I guess we can't answer that. But that's something that the powers that be need to answer for themselves when it comes to okay, where's the line drawn between us protecting America and us trying to, play God essentially in other countries. You know, well, but with that, I guess this focus should be now on what is the government going to do for the 100,000 plus refugees who fled Afghanistan in the area to come here. I see companies like Airbnb, paying uh, Airbnb hosts to house some of these refugees, to give them housing. But of course, if they're going to be here, they're going to have to work. I guess stuff like that, which I guess can be figured out. But I guess that's what the focus should be now. Now that the war is over, and that, yes, the air quotes are there. What are we going to do for the refugees to help them move on in life, whether it's here, somewhere else, whatever? And I guess I'll figure that out. But and of course, we mentioned already the 13 people who lost their lives. Um, in that suicide bomb attack that happened shortly while this stuff was happening at the airlift there. And I do, even though, like you said, many have died over the course of the 20 years, but I guess these 13 stand out because it was an effort while we're trying to get out of the country, yet these 13 just couldn't make it. But in Cowpart Bros fashion, as we've done before on the show, I do feel I do want to go through the names of these individuals real quick. And again, it's not to slight anyone else who's died recently while there, even also during the exit. But I just feel like it's important to mention. And one thing you'll notice, a common theme about these people when I go through them, which I'll touch on when we're done. Wow. Um, but here we
You okay?
go. Yeah. Marine Corps Lance Corporal David L. Espinosa, 20 of Rio Bravo, Texas. Marine Corps Sergeant Nicole L.G., 23 of Sacramento, California. Marine Corps Staff Sergeant Darren T. Hoover, 31 of Salt Lake City. Army Staff Sergeant Ryan C. Knaus, 23 of Corryton, Tennessee. Marine Corps Corporal Hunter Lopez, 22 of Indio, California. Marine Corps Lance Corporal Riley J. McCullum, 20 of Jackson, Wyoming. Marine Corps Lance Corporal Dylan R. Marola, 20 of Rancho Cucamonga, California. Marine Corps Lance Corporal Kareem M. Nakau, 20 of Norco, California. Marine Corps Sergeant Johanny Rosario Pichardo, 25 of Lawrence, Massachusetts. Marine Corps Corporal Humberto A. Sanchez, 22 of Logansport, Indiana. Marine Corps Lance Corporal Jared M. Schmitz, 20 of St. Charles, Missouri. Navy Hospital Corpsman Maxton W. Soviak, 22 of Berlin Heights, Ohio. Marine Corps Corporal Dagan W. Page, 23 of Omaha, Nebraska. The one thing you'll notice is 12 of those 13 people were all in their 20s. Even the gentleman who's 31, they're all young. 5 of them weren't even old enough to drink yet, legally in the U.S. Now, I don't want to go too far in this because this is off subject, but I will say that I think stuff like this. Now, obviously, these people volunteered; they signed up for the military of their own accord. But I will say that one thing I've always been against, and I know people will definitely agree with me, that at least when it comes to the United States military, that if these individuals legally aren't old enough to drink for, I'm sure, a good reason, that's why it's a law. Why are they legally allowed to give their lives for this country? If they feel like somebody who's 18, 19, 20 can't legally make the decision to take alcohol into the body, but yet they're of sound mind to go to war and get their life for their country? Really? I mean, if you had the chance, go online, look at the faces of these young men. I mean, they're not babies like in a crib babies, but they're babies in life. And now their families have to bury them essentially or have a funeral for them because they were in a war that maybe they shouldn't have been in the first place. Like some of these guys who are 20, they probably weren't even alive when 9/11 happened. Think about that. The reason this war started was over something that these guys weren't even alive yet to experience probably when they're only 20. And real quick, I thought about this when I was making notes for the show. Just a quick question for you. When it comes to you and your household, obviously we as we talked, your kids, none of them were old enough they weren't alive for 9/11, not even your oldest. Have you or the wife had any conversations with them ever, either recently or in the past, about 9/11 and why that's so significant in United States history?
Yes. The My children were old enough to remember the 10-year anniversary. So that would have been 2011. And there was a 15-year anniversary. There have been tons of documentaries. I mean, we went pretty deep into, hey, this is an important event. It changed America. It changed the world. And trying to convey, you want to talk about striking the right tenor, trying to explain to people, to young children, that thousands of Americans losing their lives in the most heinous way possible. Um, and also speaking about 9/11 and how it led to a lot of xenophobia and how we are paying the price for some of that xenophobia to this day. So, yes, we have spoken extensively about 9/11 um, and the markets left on the nation to our kids.
All right, yeah, I definitely want to save some of that for next week. So, folks, again, with the anniversary being next Saturday, essentially, um, definitely want to ask that out of curiosity because I kind of brought up these 13 members, 5 of the 13 were only not old enough to drink yet, weren't alive when 9/11 happened. So I've kind of was thinking about that earlier when it comes to your relation to your kids. So thank you for sharing that. We'll definitely go more into this topic next week, folks. So stay tuned for that. Um, but yeah, man, I'm definitely. I think I've said my piece on this for sure. I when we went in this topic that today, I think I normally make show notes for the show just to kind of like a baseline for the points I want to talk about. And even though we don't always follow it, of course, but still it's good to know. But when I was making show notes for this segment in particular, I didn't really know how to put it. I'm like, I know what I want to say, but like, how do I go about saying it? Because it's like I don't know. I just kind of felt that need to kind of be perfect when we say stuff. But so essentially, I didn't make any notes for this segment. I'm just like, you know what? I'll let Terrence ask his opening question. Go from there. I read enough articles on this today, so I just figure I'll let you ask your question and go from there. So, thanks for doing that, man. That was definitely a good segment. Did not go as poorly as I thought it might, so that's good to know as well. But yeah, I definitely said my piece on this. So, what are your final thoughts on this particular topic, sir?
My final thought on this is a quote from Albert Einstein, which is older men start wars, but younger men fight them.
That goes in line pretty well with yeah, what I was just saying before. So, yeah.
Yeah. Um, Again, thank you for being open and being honest. And I think you really, you want to talk about showcasing the the Jason that I know and love, someone that actually cared enough to look to actually research this topic, and you gave a lot of nuance that I didn't anticipate us getting into, like the fact that many of the service members were incredibly young. Um, that is something that we can't we can't and shouldn't avoid when we discuss the military. So it's actually one of the most pro military and pro American things we can do here on Cal Park Bros. All right. That concludes that segment on Afghanistan. Coming up next in segment two, we're going to be talking about fantasy football rules that we love and also love on Cal Park Bros.